My favorite part is the very beginning, where you get to sort of pull on the core threads of curiosity and what is this about as a project, and kind of weave a story with those threads.
Kind of a first step with clients when they come to 2Heads as an agency, as opposed to us just going, yeah, thanks for the brand guidelines, we'll come back to you. There's a dialogue that has to happen. Otherwise, we're developing a concept without any intentionality.
I do love the finality of it. I think it's one of the rare lines of work where you will see the results of your blood, sweat, and many, many tears.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to 2Heads Roundtable. We're here today to talk about all things experiential marketing. We're in our lovely Montreal office. It is the beginning of spring, and I am joined by my colleagues, Rob and Dom.
Hello.
Good morning, Nadine.
Welcome, guys. We're going to talk today primarily about experiential marketing, just giving kind of a brief overview of the agency. 2Heads has been around for 40 years, but our Montreal office is very new. Today, we're going to kind of touch on trends that you're noticing at the moment in the industry of experiential marketing, kind of do some future predictions. We'll watch this back in a year and see if they landed, and just really get an idea of why Montreal is so special to this industry. And what we can bring to the table for clients. So
Fantastic.
I'll kind of kick us off by saying we're all born and raised in Montreal, have been here our whole lives. Obviously, the cultural diversity is a huge part of Montreal's appeal within Canada. We have a strong client base that's here, and it allows us to support the East Coast of North America. So we do have an office in Los Angeles. We have an office in London. Montreal is kind of the natural center point. And I feel like Montreal in general is kind of a natural gathering or meeting point.
Yeah, geographically, culturally, creatively, like we really have nestled into a great sweet spot between those different locations.
It's been probably 15 years that I'm in this industry of experiential marketing. We've seen it change a lot over the course of that time. But I think what I love most about this industry is that it has such a definite deadline. So when you're looking at your project plan and the client says the show opens on July 3rd, that is not negotiable. Mm-hmm. So you have to do everything in your power to reach that deadline in a responsible way, on budget, with creative. And I think I really love that finality of it. Like, there is a point in time at which the curtain's going to go up and you either have your shit together or you don't.
Yeah.
And you got to have your shit together. So I think that's the thing that attracts me the most to this industry.
For me, I do love the finality of it. I think it's one of the rare lines of work where you will see the results of your blood, sweat, and many, many tears. Like, there's a tangible thing coming out of this and a feeling attached to it. Almost as important or almost as appreciated is that thing will also end. So no matter how much blood, sweat, and tears there were, that event is going to start.
It shall pass.
That experience will end. And there is that closure, whether you want it or not. And that's a nice thing sometimes. The other thing I really love is, how it scratches both halves of your brain. For me, I've always loved really understanding the technology part of things and the actual mechanics of things. Like, how are these things working? How can I reverse engineer them and then use those as paintbrushes to help create feelings, to help tell stories, to help produce an experience, and work with the left half and the right half of your brain and just put it together in that awesome sort of symbiotic harmony.
I think that's sometimes the mechanics of it are the enemy of creative. But Dom, your background being based in production, I know when you and Rob work together, there's a lot of idea sharing and kind of collaborative generation of ideas that are feasible from the get-go, right? As opposed to...
Well, this is the how-to, and that's great, and there's a time for that. My favorite part, however, is before that. I really like to, and you guys have come to know me a little more in the past couple of months, and my favorite part is the very beginning, where you get to sort of pull on the core threads of curiosity and what is this about as a project, and kind of weave a story with those threads. And then once this story is sort of identified, how do you bring it to the physical space, and how does it tie to your sort of keywords that you identify and ties to the objective of the brand and whatnot, is sort of the magic that happens. That really is my favorite bits.
So you talked about storytelling, and I want to give you the chance to expand on that because it's something that you bring up often. We've had the chance to work on a couple of projects now. You've already been very busy in your first few months at the agency. One element that you always bring up that I think always resonates with clients is this idea of the power of play and storytelling and why that is important. You know, I think we started off by saying client goes, I'd like an event. And my response is generally, okay, how long is a piece of string, right? Like an event can be anything from me walking in the room with a birthday cake to, you know, a multi-million-dollar stage production for an A-list celebrity. So kind of talk us through, how do you go about developing a story with a client? And what is that initial, because I've seen you do it. You kind of, your eyes glaze over and you go into this zone where we just kind of let you go and you come back with this really poignant narrative.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that are super important that I discovered or stumbled upon mostly by accident along the years. But there's a very limited amount of very core things to the human heart, if I should say. What our brands and our client and our partner wants to do on a daily basis is connect with an audience, right? And we still have a couple years until those audience become fully AI, but up until now, they're still human, so we're safe. And storytelling is very much at the core of the human heart, you know?
Please don't let that be your prediction, is that in a year robots take over.
But yeah, a story in itself, everything is made of stories when you think about it. Laws, religion, government, it's all story made. And we're the only creature, I think, that, well, not I think, I'm pretty sure we're the only creature that tells themselves those things, right? And that's how they're so powerful, I believe. And there's very little themes, like there's rags to riches, there's like overcoming the monsters, there's the journey back in there.
Journey. Yeah.
It's always stories that we've heard before, but it's stronger than us. We have to watch it again or hear it again or imagine ourselves.
We're compelled to watch it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why it's so strong. So if you can uncover what the story is in the project, like, is it a story about art? Is it a story about a map? You know, is it a journey? You know, we have a couple of clients that are in the gaming industry. Then what is a game? You know, if not a journey there and back again into a different world, right?
Yeah.
So when you start playing with those words and those concepts, usually the creative will unfold itself almost automatically. And then it's just a matter of communicating those ideas that you've explored into a tangible space for people to enjoy. You know, so storytelling obviously is, I try at least to fold details like that into our project. And it can be very subtle. You know, some people would imagine like, oh, you know, I'm going to open a book and read to people in the booth. Like, no, that's not it. I've worked for a toy company for a long time. And one of the most powerful storytelling element we could use were prototypes and sketches of toys that we've developed, so that people could see a little bit the behind the scene and that story of how a toy is brought to life from a sketch to shelf, right? And sometimes we would have the opportunity to show a little bit like the factory. We did factory tours at the time, so people can see the behind the scene. It's also a very powerful storytelling element.
I think we've seen that a lot with reality TV shows, documentary type TV shows as well now. I mean,
well, that's why they're so popular. Yeah.
I'm a huge F1 fan.
Yeah.
And kind of Drive to Survive changed that sport completely for people to be able to see behind the scenes. And people go, I don't watch it for the racing, I watch it for the drama.
Yeah.
And that's kind of showing people behind the curtain. It's something that came up in, we did a thought leadership summit last November in New York, and we had kind of 30 top brands, C-suite come in, and we had a panel of speakers, and the focus really became sports marketing. And the topic that came up the most was authenticity and how that helps to build a community. Especially how younger audiences are looking for that. It shouldn't be polished. It shouldn't be finished. It shouldn't be bright and shiny. They should feel like they're helping to influence it and create it. The reaction to their reaction has to be much quicker. So I think that's something that's really what you're describing in that behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Is that idea of authenticity.
More real.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It makes it more relatable, more accessible, because real life, as much as we want it to be, is not polished and pretty most of the time.
Yeah.
And by showing, you know, that authenticity in your art, in your experience, in your events, you know, that's how you build a connection with your audiences?
I think brands often come to an agency and go, here's my brand book, I would like to do an event, and then are sometimes surprised when we ask questions.
Yeah. A lot of people tend to think, well, I gave you a color palette and a font.
Yeah.
Isn't that a story? That's an event, right?
Right.
And no, those are great tools.
The theme is
those are
blue.
ingredients. The theme is event. The theme is event.
Yeah.
Those are fantastic ingredients, but that's not an experience.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate you calling them ingredients, because it's often the case of thank you for the flour, sugar, eggs, but what kind of a cake are we making here? Mm-hmm. Is it a coffee cake you're bringing over to a friend's house to just have a little chat? Is it a wedding cake? Yeah. What kind of effect are we looking to have? Does it need to be a showstopper? Does it need to sit in the background and be a supporting character? Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important when we kind of a first step with clients when they come to 2Heads as an agency, as opposed to us just going, yeah, thanks for the brand guidelines, we'll come back to you. Mm-hmm. There's a dialogue that has to happen. Otherwise, we're developing a concept without any intentionality.
And do you find that, clients are responding to that dialogue naturally? Are they coming to the table ready to have that conversation?
More often than not, no. It's pushing them out of their comfort zone, which we try to do, because that is how your brand stays relevant and evolves and continues to reach an audience. I think we always try to approach it from a voyage of discovery, if I can call it that, of helping clients realize things about their own brand that they may not have realized before. I think when you ask a client, what audience are you trying to reach? They kind of go, well, everyone. And you're like, that's, in some cases, yes, you're trying to affect as many people as possible. But then you kind of keep asking those follow-up questions and drill down into, okay, no, but specifically, are you finding that Gen Z is not really resonating with your product or your message? Mm-hmm. Let's dig into that. Here's what we're noticing in other parallel industries that might be relevant. I've finished so many events and had the client kind of go, oh, now my team is asking me what the ROI is from the event. And it's part of our briefing at the beginning is tracking that and being intentional about it from the beginning. Because if your metric for success is measuring how many people engage with your retail activation, and yet you're not building into your experience the counting of the number of people,
well, that's it.
Then you're not going to have the analytics at the end. So I think that's a really important one as well that clients forget is your ROI has to be set from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of clients have a very basic view on what ROI means. Just because 20,000 people walked through your booth doesn't necessarily mean that you've improved perception of your brand, that you've engaged with new followers, that you've been receptive to maybe some feedback that they might have, or given them a positive experience to share online. So I think that's a really key one for us to build in.
Your booth might have just been located where there was a great shortcut to the bathrooms.
Right. Did you have really comfy chairs? I mean, I'm not going to diss a comfy chair, but unless your ROI metric is how many bums in seats,
I would do a lot for a comfy chair
at a trade
on
show.
Any day.
I would fight a person for a comfy chair at a trade show. But I think that's really important in ROI. And I was speaking recently to one of the panelists who's going to be on our upcoming Next Thought Leadership Summit in Los Angeles. And she was saying, she had a really interesting point about how we tend to think of ROI as data. Mm-hmm. So how many people, how many engagements, high touch, low touch, we kind of have an idea that it sits in math.
Yeah, and how does that convert to dollars and cents?
Right. What does that directly mean for my bottom line? And her point was sometimes you just have to go to the event and see the effect it's having on people. So you can talk to us about how. You can measure how many people smiled when they interacted with your brand.
Yeah,
however,
we have a department that does that.
We do. Our creative technologists are all over it. But realistically, it's important for the marketing team of a brand to go to the space and see how people are engaging with it. I mean, we did a beautiful installation for Disney a number of years ago, and it was the most simple engagement where you would step on a pressure sensor on the floor, and that would kind of kick off an animation within this. It sounds more complicated, but it was beautiful. This kind of 3D hologram booth, and people would just kind of dance. There was, it was just the pure joy of, oh my gosh, I'm having this randomly generated character. Some people would sit there and stomp over and over again until they got the character they wanted. And it was such a simple motion, but it generated so much joy. Mm-hmm. So you could look at that installation and go, how many people pushed the pad? Yeah. How many times did this character come up? But it's equally important to go and see how much people loved that activation.
Absolutely.
And we've seen that a lot, especially we've been much more involved in anime recently. And that is such an engaged fan base. Oh my gosh, I had no idea how engaged anime fans were until I attended Anime Expo a couple times. But people will queue for hours to purchase a pin, a t-shirt, a poster, because they deeply, deeply, deeply love these brands. They love the stories that these titles are telling. And sometimes it is as simple as taking a selfie with a really beautiful backdrop.
Yep.
Like, I think we also encourage clients not to overcomplicate things. I think a lot of clients, especially recently, have come to us and gone, how do I integrate AI into my experience? And we're kind of going, do you have to? Like,
sometimes it's super cool,
and
but
sometimes there's a great opportunity.
Doesn't serve at all. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not necessary, So I think that's something that our creative technology team, who we mentioned earlier, are very intentional about, is don't do tech for tech's sake. We get a lot of briefs where clients say, I want a giant screen. And we're like, cool, what are you putting on it?
Our logo.
Right.
All right.
They get to the end and go, oh, okay, didn't really have any content. Maybe I'll just put my logo up there. And that's such a cringe for us, because we do have an in-house digital team that develops beautiful content.
Interactive
and I think
ones
interactive
as well.
content.
They can be great canvas for something
Yeah.
amazing. But yeah, to your point.
If you're not intentional about that from the beginning, I keep saying intentional, it's going to be my buzzword. But if you're not intentional about that storytelling from the beginning of what are you trying to have people walk away with, then you will miss those opportunities, and you will needlessly spend on high-tech pieces that are not necessarily going to add anything to the experience. So sometimes, yes, we've come up with solutions of AI generated art that is unique to the person engaging with it. You can do a lot of beautiful things with AI, but we always say don't do tech for tech's sake. It has to feel intentional. Otherwise, we would just be walking through a showroom of beautiful screens, and there's a place for that too. Going back to your kind of previous experience in the industry, how have you seen experiential marketing change over the last kind of 5-10 years? And then what has surprised you about that?
It's a good question. Definitely, I think people are expecting more interactive things. So this goes into the power of play a little bit. But I mean, they're expecting the interactivity to be a little bit more present. And that's true in trade shows and events, and it's also in retail as well. If they're going to go somewhere, it better be exciting, immersive. There better be something to do there that got me moving from my comfortable home instead of watching it online or on your website. So definitely in the past couple years, the need for immersive, the need for activation, how to interact with your brand is something that's been much more demanded of our client. Like, what are we going to do type of thing.
So I want to talk kind of personal experiences from you guys.
Oh God.
On, prepare yourselves, on an event that you went to that deeply affected you, and then kind of expand on why you think that was. So this can be at any point in your life.
Okay.
You went to Disney on Ice when you were 3 and it deeply affected you as a human. What's kind of...
I'll dive right in. And it's an event like a week or two ago. It was the most granola, grassroots, low budget of projects, like fringe theater style, specifically for the deaf and hard of hearing community. I've done a lot of shows. I've done a lot of shows in dance, and this was to travel with a dance company to put on a production for those who cannot hear. And that as a concept was not something I had ever even...
Yeah, talk about reaching your audience. My gosh.
Talk about reaching your audience in so many different ways. I'm still processing it because, the show itself, we are, like 2 weeks later, I'm still a little bit at a loss for words. The show is beautiful, but there's just so much different intention and attention and focus behind reaching your audience when one of those faculties just isn't present anymore. And it extends beyond the stage, beyond the event space as well. How are you targeting that audience? How are you targeting that community? A community that historically has been very isolated. You know, live events, live production, it's not that it's inherently inaccessible.
No, but a huge pillar of
but
it
it's
is
inherently
is
inaccessible.
sound. Yeah.
A huge pillar is sound or sight or mobility. And, you know, it's really just opened up my mind to a whole other platitude of sensitivities that I recognize I know almost nothing about, and most of us know almost nothing about, and that's not fair. You know, to me, equity is really, really, really important. And that's something I want to do a better job for myself at keeping top of mind moving forward in the experiences that we are producing. Just being more mindful of our inclusion and of our accessibility.
Our existing biases.
And our existing
Yeah.
biases, which are many and they run deep. And there's no reason why we can't do better. So yeah, that's my little story of an event that really has really impacted me.
Dom?
I think it was a number of years ago, one of the first events I did with Mega Bloks at BlizzCon. So a fan-based event, a bit like Comic-Con, if you will, but for Blizzard. Blizzard being a computer game, and we had the license for World of Warcraft. So we go there, we have a booth, and the activation there, we devised, we told ourselves, like, we're going to do a make and take. Right? So people are going to build something and leave with it. And I remember for some reason the bricks got a little bit delayed, but there was this gigantic table with a lip in the middle of the booth, and then people were starting to come in and the bricks were a bit late and they were wondering, like, well, what's this about? And I remember coming there with the box of brick and like crashing in the table.
Starting playtime.
Like, you could see people like light up, like, what? I can make and
these are adults.
Stuff? And these are full-grown adults.
Yeah.
Some children, of course, but like mainly like adult nerds. And it was like elbow, no, I want to do it and stuff like that. Like you could see like the power of play at work, like 100%. Like, and that's where I started to understand, I think, like, oh, okay, that's how you connect with people. Like, you gotta tap into that. Like that was amazing. It was a great event.
Absolutely. And what was kind of the feedback after the event from your team?
Oh, I think we did make and take for years after that. There was always like
was
some
expected.
table at some, oh yeah, absolutely. Where's going to be the make and take in the booth? Like it had to be somewhere because it was so successful and people would take pictures of their little creations. And then we would tie into that as well for community building, for like post and win type of thing. And, you know, there's endless ways to do that. But yeah, like we didn't stop doing this like for years.
The first one was a Lululemon event that I was part of a number of years ago, and it was a half marathon that took place in Vancouver. And I had never experienced this before, but the attention that the brand put into the pre-race experience for runners was incredible, especially for the time. I think since then we've seen that expand.
So as someone who would never run for fun, I will only run from something to save my life physically or emotionally. What is a pre-race experience?
So it was everything. Communication strategy was incredible. So really from the moment that you knew that this event was going to happen, the way that they communicated it, the way that they conveyed this sense of excitement, of achievability, and I'll get to that in a minute, but they kind of just made it so accessible that you couldn't help but go, yeah, I think I want to do that. That sounds like a great time. So from the initial interaction with the brand and with the idea of the event, they were already building engagement. Then there was an online portal for the event. So you could log in, you could book your shopping time when you got to the race. You could, it was gamified. There were so many things that you could do in this before you even got there. You're already an ambassador for what you're about to go do. People are sharing it on social. I'm going to go do this thing. So it was really important how the brand empowered the people who were going to attend to talk about it before they even went. And so the excitement just built and built and built. And then by the time people got on site, they were fired up. I mean, you take people that are already there to do a run and have a good time. These are intrinsically very motivated people. They just could not wait to tell anyone who would listen that they were there for a Lululemon event. And it inspiring for me to see how much attention was paid to the pre-event comms. And I think it's something that I feel is very much missing in the trade show space, where people go, come visit us at booth 1203. And you're like,
End
woo,
sentence.
yeah, I am fired up to visit you at booth 1203. You know, like, I think there's an opportunity for brands to consider that a bit more.
Could just go on a tangent for a second.
Yeah.
You are totally right. That is always the call to action. Come
Yes.
visit us at booth number. Why does no one ever say, hey, those numbers are only ever referenced during the build, right? Like when you're actually at the trade show, those numbers mean
They don't exist
nothing.
anymore.
That's not a wayfinding
They get
tool.
pulled up with the carpet.
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's true.
We're gonna
We're
solve
gonna fix
that.
the UX of trade shows in general.
Thank you. Can't wait.
And then we're going to just keep doing what we do. So that event was particularly exciting. And I bring it up because it is relevant now in my day-to-day life, in that I have signed up for the next run that they are doing. And now I have to do it because I have said it on camera. It is a 10K that's happening in a couple of weeks in Miami. And my memory from, I'm going to age myself dramatically here, 8 years ago, my memory from 8 years ago of what that experience was like working at that event inspired me to engage with the brand 8 years later for the same type of event. It had such a profound impact that the minute that came up, I was like, I'm not a runner, but I'm going to go to that. So TBD, we'll do a live vlog on whether I survived my experience, but the intention is there. And where do you see the next kind of, I even hesitate to say 5 years because so much can change in 1 year. So kind of if we're visiting our future selves, what's kind of your prediction for where our industry is going? Mm-hmm. So kind of experiential marketing, immersive experiences, what trends are you noticing that you feel will really skyrocket?
I know where I would like it to go.
You can be aspirational.
I will be aspirational. Just going to set myself up for disappointment.
It's called manifesting. It's manifesting.
Right. That's what the influencers say. I'm manifesting. I would like things to become a little more methodical and a little bit slower.
More intentional, maybe?
Much more intentional. With the proliferation and propagation of immersive experiences and more and more events, and the pendulum swinging from maybe events are dead to no, they were actually really important, we need more events than ever. There's this sense of expectation and immediacy from clients, from consumers, and
it's a bit reactive at times.
Super reactive, super urgent. We are people, and we are good at what we do because we are taking the time to think things through and to be methodical and to be intentional. So my aspiration is for not the volume to slow down or to drop, but the pace to slow down a little bit, and for us to be more intentional and more meaningful and more respectful of the time that good creativity takes in our project management life cycle.
Dom, what do you kind of see up and coming?
I think with the some venues are so expensive and brands have a limited budget, obviously. I think we may see the rise of brands doing their own version of certain things, like as opposed to go to the typical trade show that they always go, that is now $1 million, $1.5 million, and $2 million. They're going to be like, well, hang on, like, how about we do our own thing and invite, some people, or we do it in a different location. I expect the locations to be more varied.
More surprising venues.
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe so. Private, not private, public, somewhere else than a typical convention center. I would imagine that may be the case, yeah.
I love that. Can we add that to my aspirations list as well? Please and thank you.
Rob's wish list as we go through. I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to do this today. We've touched on a lot of different things. We talked about community building, the power of play, the importance of intention, knowing your audience. I mean, gosh, we talked about all of it. What experiential is, why Montreal is important. So just want to thank you guys. If anyone has any questions, you can get in touch with us through the link. Like and subscribe, follow 2Heads on all social media to stay in touch with us and see what we're up to. Thanks so much.
Thank you.